What do you think when you hear the word of grammar? As a student in school, you may have thought of as a set of exercises to get right in English class. Now, in this section, I will give you the definition of grammar and the reason why we need to learn about grammar. Start from the definition of grammar. What is actually grammar? Grammar is a theory of language, of how language is put together and how it works. More particularly, it is the study of wordings. And then, what is the wordings? As you can see on the screen, there are examples that time flies like an arrow. In some theories of grammar, lexicogrammar is called as syntax, which is studied independent yet of semantic. In another theory of grammar, wordings are characteristics such that they are able to explain the meaning. So before start the material, I would like to introduce the member from the group 1. The first is Zahra Alifia, and then Assyifa Ghina, and then me, Salma Annafi, and the last one is Ratna Yulia. Well, what do you think when you hear the word of grammar? I think as a student in school, you may have thought of it as a set of exercises to get right in English class. But in this section, I would like to give you the simple definition of grammar and the reason why we need to know about grammar. Let's start from the definition of grammar. What is grammar actually? Grammar is a theory of language, of how language is put together and how it works. More particularly, it is the study of wordings. Let's move to the next topic about the reason why grammar is important. As we know, you are in English department and someday you will be a teacher. We have to remember that a teacher have to know about text work so we can explicitly help learners learn how to understand and produce text spoken and written in various contexts for various purposes. In conclusion, as a teacher, we have a responsibility to make sure that the student not make a mistake while make a text or maybe communicate that causes by grammar. In another side, we also have to understand about the characterizing of language. Theories of language or grammar is ended up with somewhat different perspective. And like the blind man's experience, theories of language or grammar are not inherently good or bad, right or wrong, true or false. Rather, grammar are validated by their usefulness in describing and explaining the phenomenon called language.
And the next is traditional grammar. Traditional grammar refers to the set of perspective rules and conceptions regarding language structure that are widely taught in school. The goal is to describe conventional English grammar by comparing it to Latin. It focuses on rules for producing correct sentences. As such, it is deductive. Students learn names of part of speech as like nouns, verbs, prepositions, adverbs, and adjectives. Read books, phrases, and learn how to repair poor grammar. And the next one is formal grammar. Formal grammars are concerned to describe the structure of individual sentences, such as grammar view language as set of rules which allow or disallow certain sentence structures. Knowledge of this rule is seen as being carried around inside the mind. And then, what we are going to talk the next is functional grammar. Functional grammars view language as a resource for making meaning. These grammars attempt to describe language in actual use and so focus on text and their context. They are concerned not only with the structure but only with how those structures construct meaning. Functional grammar is about how are the meanings of this text released. Systemic functional grammar, on the other hand, labels elements of the clause in terms of the function each is playing in that clause rather than by word class. For example, time flies like an arrow, and the time is an actor, flies is a process in the material process, and then like an arrow is circumstance of manner. And the second example is Tim told of a tragic case. Tim is a participant sayer, and told is a process verbal, and of a tragic case is matter circumstance. And here the differences between time flies like an arrow and Tim told of a tragic case is the participants. The first is the participants. The participants in time flies like an arrow is an actor because the process is a material process. And then the next is the second example. The second example is Tim as a sayer participant because what Tim do here is a verbal process that is told. And then the differences about the like an arrow circumstance and of a tragic case circumstance is the like an arrow is a manner circumstance and the of a tragic case is a matter circumstance. The next one we are going to talk the differences between formal or traditional grammar and functional grammar. The main differences in perspective among the above three grammars are following the table is presented. The first one is from formal and traditional grammar. The primary concern is how it should the sentence be constructed, and the difference between functional grammar is the functional grammar primary concern is how are the meanings of this text relates, and the second one is unit of analysis. In the formal and traditional grammar, unit of the analysis is the sentence, and the functional grammar unit of analysis is the whole text. And then the language level of a formal and traditional grammar is the syntax one, and then the functional grammar is we talked about the semantics one. And then the last one is the formal and traditional grammar language is a set of rules of sentence construction and something we know, and it's different from functional grammar because in the functional grammar the language we'll talking about a research for meaning making and something we do.
The context, text connection. All meaning is situated in a context of situation and in a context of culture. Knowing the context of situation makes the utterance intelligible. Context of culture determines what we can mean through first being who we are, and second doing what we do, and the third saying what we say. Context of situation can be specified through use of the register variables field, tenor, and mode. Field refers to what is going on, including activity focus and object focus. So here, field specifies what is going on in with reference to what. And the second is tenor. Tenor refers to the social relationship between those taking part. These are specifiable in terms of status or power, and then affect and contact. For example, like how you say good morning to your family members or shop assistants and etc. This simple acts very much a cultural one and clearly bespeaks social relationship. Understanding text, reconstructing the context. When we overhear or read a text, we can reconstruct its context of situation. For example, we supervise the planting and inspect the harvest, and we buy only the peak of the crop. Our experienced buyer look for lack of blemish, minimum number of A's, pure white meaty interiors with firm frying consistency. And then this is the example of field. What is the topic of the above text? And then the example of tenor. Who or what kind of person produced this text or whom? And then do you think the original was written or spoken? This is the example of mode. The wordings of text simultaneously encode three types of meaning. The first is ideational, and the second is interpersonal, and the third is textual. Ideational meanings are meanings about phenomena, about things, living and non-living, abstract and concrete, but concern what we think are or do and the circumstances surrounding these happenings and doings. These meanings are realized in wordings through participants, process, and circumstances. So this is the example. We buy only the peak of the crop. We as participant actor buy as a process material only pick of the crop as participant goal. And then the second example is polar bear are expert hunters. In here, polar bears as participant career, are as process attributive, and then expert hunters as participant attributive. Interpersonal meanings are meanings which express a speaker's attitude and judgment. These are meanings for acting upon and with other. Meanings are realized in wording through what is called an modality. Meanings of this kind are most centrally influenced by tenor of discourse. So these are the example sentence. First is, we inspect the growing plants every week. This is the example of declarative. And then, Rock, get those plants inspected right now. This is the example of imperative. This example consider which kind of people are allowed to order others about. And then the second and third example you can read by yourself. The second example consider the degree of informality or formality. And the third example consider the attitudinal lexis in italics which express a fact, the degree of like or dislike. And then we move to modality. So there are two sentences. The first, fortunately, Brock is an inspector. And then the second, unfortunately, Brock is an inspector. So from here we can conclude that this sentence consider the mode adjuncts which reveal attitude or judgment. So here, textual meanings express the relation of language to its environment, including both the verbal environment, what has been said or written before, or context, and the non-verbal, situational environment or context.
Next material is about genre. A genre can define as a culturally specific text type which results from using language, written or spoken, to help accomplish something. For example, our typical doctor and patient consultation. This consultation has a purpose. It takes place through a series of stages and uses language in particular ways. So there is usually some sort of greeting, an invitation from the doctor for the patient to describe symptoms, an examination during which the doctor tells the patient what the problem is, if known, and how it will be treated. If not known, the doctor explains that a referral is necessary. The consultation closes with some kinds of leave-taking. This is how it's done in an English-speaking culture. In a community in which health consultation depends on reading entrails of a chicken, this genre will be replaced by one rather different in staging and language use. So, genres are culture specific and have associated with them, such as particular purposes, particular stages like distinctive beginnings, middles, and ends, and then particular linguistic features. Most people appreciate to the fact that narratives and procedures, for example, differ in purpose and the way they begin, develop, and end. It is our observation that it is the significance of characteristic linguistic features that unfortunately seems least understood. However, what skewing characteristic linguistic feature does to the following text? Men think they are dumb, so they go to psychiatrist. After a while, the doctor says they are cured. The men meet friends on the street. The friends ask them, "How do you feel?" "Fine," the man said. "Just feel our noses." The original of the text is a type of narrative. The purpose of the text of this genre is to relate an amusing or unusual experience in an entertaining way. In narrative, participants are usually specific and individual. Processes are usually material, with some verbal and mental type of process as well. The verbs are in past tense. In the above rendition, the participants have been made generic. as the classes of things are under discussion. The process type have not been changed, but all the verbs have been changed to present tense. Use of generic participant and present tense verbs are typical of reports, not narrative. This is because generic participant and use of present tense verb grammatically help report achieve their purpose to describing the way things such as natural, social, and synthetic are. As in the following. All animal cells have a number of parts in common. They all have a cell membrane. This is a thin sac that controls with chemicals can enter and leave a cell. The liquid contents are divided into nucleus and cytoplasm. We hope that you will understand enough about the genre and grammar connection to be able to intervene in a direct and constructive way in the writing of student you teach.